The first time Elena noticed something wrong in her perfect life was the morning her wedding ring vanished. She always placed it carefully on the nightstand. That day she found it tucked behind her jewelry box. Elena frowned, her heart sinking. She knew she hadn't put it there. 6 months ago, Elena had everything she ever dreamed of. A beautiful home, a charming husband named Adrian, and the kind of financial security most people envied. But now she wasn't so sure. "Darling, are you sure you didn't just forget?" Adrian asked that morning, his voice syrupy sweet as he knelt beside her. "You've been under so much stress since your father passed." Elena shook her head firmly. "I've been grieving, yes. But I'm not careless." Adrian wrapped his arms around her, a gentle sigh escaping his chest. "Maybe we should talk to someone. A professional." Elena pulled back slightly. "I don't need therapy because I misplaced a ring." But deep down she knew it wasn't just the ring. Strange things had been happening. Appointments she didn't make, her car parked in odd places. Small things that made her sound crazy when she tried to explain them. The doorbell rang then, snapping Elena from her thoughts. Adrian's face brightened. That must be Mom. Vivian, Adrian's mother, swept into the house like a queen returning to her castle. Her silk scarf floated behind her, carrying the heavy scent of expensive perfume. "Elena, darling," Vivian cooed, air kissing the space near her cheek. "You look exhausted. Have you been sleeping at all?" Elena forced a polite smile. "I'm fine. Just busy with the foundation." Vivian settled onto their leather sofa, crossing her legs elegantly. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. "Handling your father's estate must be overwhelming, especially now." Adrian entered the room handing out coffee cups. Elena noticed the strange glance exchanged between mother and son, a loaded look she couldn't quite decipher. "Speaking of the estate," Vivian continued smoothly, "Adrian mentioned you've been a bit scattered lately." Elena set her coffee down with a harder thud than intended. "Scattered? What's that supposed to mean?" Adrian leaned forward, voice soothing. "Mom's just concerned. Like when you missed that hospital board meeting last week." Elena blinked. She clearly remembered crossing that meeting off her calendar because it had been rescheduled. Hadn't it? "And the incident with Rosa?" Vivian added gently, stirring her coffee with slow precision. Elena stiffened. "What incident with Rosa?" Another loaded look passed between Adrian and Vivian. "Sweetheart," Adrian said carefully, "Rosa quit 2 weeks ago after you two had a disagreement." Elena's head spun. "That's not true," she said slowly. "Rosa and I spoke just yesterday about the weekend cleaning schedule." Vivian reached out to pat her hand, but Elena pulled back instinctively. "It's okay, darling," Vivian soothed. "Stress does terrible things to the mind." That night, Elena lay awake next to Adrian's sleeping form. Every creak and whisper of the house made her heart race. She finally slipped out of bed and into her study. Pulling open a drawer, she retrieved a fresh notebook. On the first page she wrote the date and started listing everything strange. The ring, the calendar, Rosa, the garage. As the list grew, a chilling pattern emerged. Her pen trembled in her hand. Then a soft creak outside the study door made her freeze. She quickly hid the notebook and looked up just as Adrian appeared. "Can't sleep?" Adrian asked, stepping into the room, all concern and affection. Elena shut her laptop with a gentle click. "Just replying to some foundation emails," she lied. Adrian crossed the room, brushing a kiss against her forehead. "You need rest. Come back to bed." Elena nodded, slipping her notebook into the drawer before following him upstairs. But as they reached the landing she paused. Voices, hushed, urgent, floated down the hallway. She tiptoed toward the guest room where a sliver of light glowed under the door. Vivian's whisper slipped through the crack. "Moving too fast. We need to be patient. The trust fund stipulations." Adrian's voice, tense, answered, "I know the stipulations. A few more weeks and she won't be a problem anymore." Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She clamped a hand over her mouth to stifle any sound and backed away slowly, every hair on her arms standing on end. When Adrian finally slid back into bed minutes later, Elena lay beside him, eyes wide open in the dark. She wasn't paranoid. She wasn't imagining things. She was being hunted. The next morning, Elena dressed quietly, heart hammering as she slipped into the city to buy a voice recorder. It was a slim black device disguised to look like a power bank. Perfect. She tucked it behind a row of books in their library where Adrian and Vivian often whispered together. Over coffee that afternoon, Elena confided in her oldest friend, Naomi. "You're being paranoid," Naomi said gently, stirring her latte. "Adrian adores you." Elena shook her head, pulling out her phone. "Look at my calendar. Appointments I never made. Meetings that don't exist." Naomi scrolled through, her frown deepening. Could it be a tech glitch? A glitch that only deletes important meetings? Elena snatched the phone back. "They're trying to make me look unstable, Naomi." Naomi hesitated, lowering her voice. "Have you considered, this could be abuse?" The words sat heavy between them. Before Elena could answer, her phone buzzed. A new text from Adrian. "Don't forget your 3 p.m. with Dr. Ellis. Love you." Elena stared at it. Dr. Ellis? He checked her calendar. A brand new appointment with a psychiatrist she'd never even heard of. Elena's stomach twisted as she stared at the calendar. There it was, the mysterious appointment with Dr. Ellis, logged neatly into her schedule. She hadn't made it. "This isn't normal," Naomi said slowly, setting down her coffee cup. "Not a glitch. Not at all." When Elena got home, Vivian was already waiting by the door, a smile too polished to be real. "Darling, did you make it to your appointment with Dr. Ellis?" Elena's hands tightened around her purse. "There must have been a mix-up. I didn't have an appointment today." Vivian's expression melted into exaggerated concern. "Oh, sweetheart, we're so worried about you. You made that appointment yourself last week, don't you remember?" Elena stared at her, feeling like the floor was tilting. Vivian pulled an envelope from her designer handbag and handed it to her. Inside was a printed psychiatric referral, already filled out, just needing Elena's signature. "We just want to help," Vivian said softly, reaching for Elena's arm. Elena pulled away. "I need to lie down," she muttered. In her study, Elena opened her notebook again. Her hands shook as she recorded every detail. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't confused. They were setting her up. That night, Elena barely touched her dinner. Adrian watched her carefully, pretending to be concerned. "Your mother thinks you should talk to someone," he said gently, loosening his tie. "She thinks you need support." Elena pushed her plate away. "You mean you both think I'm crazy?" Adrian's mouth tightened, but his voice stayed soft. "We're worried, that's all. You're talking about missing time, misplaced objects, false memories. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's something worse." Elena swallowed her anger. "I'm fine," she said coolly. But in the quiet of the night, after Adrian's breathing deepened into sleep, she crept into her study. She plugged in her earphones and listened to the recording from earlier that day. Her blood ran cold as Vivian's voice crackled through the tiny speaker. "The trust fund requires mental competency. If we can prove she's unstable, the inheritance becomes accessible." Adrian's voice was sharper. "I've got it under control. Tomorrow I'm taking her car keys. She'll think she lost them." Elena sat frozen, bow rising in her throat. They weren't just trying to isolate her. They were trying to erase her. The next morning, Elena pretended everything was normal. She smiled, she nodded, she played the perfect, confused wife. But secretly she checked her hidden camera footage from the library. There, clear as day, was Vivian sneaking into her purse, fiddling with her phone and taking her car keys. Evidence. Real, undeniable evidence. As Elena scrolled through the footage, her phone buzzed again. Another appointment had been mysteriously added to her calendar. A lunch with a Dr. Simmons she had never met. She watched the appointment appear in real time, syncing automatically. Adrian was syncing her phone with his. Every small change he made built the case that she was spiraling. Elena's hands clenched into fists. No, she wasn't spiraling. She was strategizing. She called Naomi immediately. "I'm going to need more than recordings," she said. "I need a full plan." Naomi didn't hesitate. "We'll get it. I'll start pulling everything on Dr. Ellis. Find out who he's really working for." Elena smiled grimly. "Good. Because if they want a war, they're going to get one." The next few days, Elena played her part with chilling precision. She let Adrian hover over her, let Vivian offer unsolicited advice. She let them see her forgetting things, confusing dates. They grew bolder, louder, more careless. Over coffee one afternoon, Adrian casually mentioned he had spoken to Mr. Carter, the lawyer handling her trust fund. He's concerned about the foundation's leadership, Adrian said, squeezing her hand. Maybe we should consider temporary measures just until you're feeling better. Elena smiled sweetly. That sounds reasonable, she lied, recording every word with her hidden device. Meanwhile, Naomi sent updates regularly. Dr. Ellis has suspicious ties to other wealthy families, she texted. At least 3 women in the last 2 years declared incompetent after seeing him. All lost control of their inheritances. Elena's chest tightened, but she kept her mask in place. They weren't just trying to destroy her life. They were trying to steal it. And they almost had, until she started paying attention. The doorbell rang the next morning while Adrian was at work. Elena opened the door cautiously and gasped. Rosa, her former housekeeper, stood there, twisting her hands nervously. Miss Elena, I had to come, Rosa whispered, glancing over her shoulder. Elena ushered her inside quickly, setting the phone to record again. Mrs. Vivian called me last week, Rosa said, clutching her purse. She wanted me to sign a statement. Saying you attacked me. Elena's stomach dropped. Did you sign it? Rosa shook her head firmly. Never. I know you. I know you're not like that. Tears pricked Elena's eyes. Thank you, Rosa. You have no idea how important this is. Rosa leaned closer, her voice shaking. They're planning something bad. I heard them talking in the library. About doctors, about money. About making you look crazy. Elena scribbled furiously in her notebook as Rosa spoke, documenting every word. When Rosa left, Elena sat in the quiet house, her mind buzzing. She had allies. She had evidence. Now she just needed the right moment to strike. Later that afternoon, Elena met Naomi at her office downtown. Naomi listened carefully as Elena played the recordings of Adrian and Vivian plotting. Her frown deepened with each passing second. This is serious, Naomi said finally. They're building a case to have you declared mentally incompetent. If they succeed, Adrian gets full control of your trust fund. Elena leaned forward. Can we stop them? Naomi's fingers flew across her laptop. But we need a little more. Something airtight. They'll claim you're emotional, unstable. Even these recordings might not be enough on their own. Elena sat back, heart hammering. Then I'll get more. They think they're winning. Let them keep thinking that. Naomi looked at her friend, admiration shining in her eyes. You're braver than most people I know, Elena. Over the next few days, Elena intensified her act. She let Adrian find her keys in strange places. She pretended to forget lunch dates. At the charity gala, she wore a slightly wrinkled dress and stumbled through conversations. Poor thing, she heard someone whisper. She's never been the same since her father passed. Adrian never left her side, steering her away from important conversations, gently correcting her whenever she mentioned details that didn't fit their narrative. Darling, he would say with a tight smile, you're thinking of last year's event. Vivian floated through the room, dripping concern. We're doing everything we can, she said to anyone who would listen. Elena felt sick, but she stayed focused. Every pitying glance, every concerned whisper, more evidence. During dinner at the gala, Elena deliberately used the wrong fork and burst into tears when someone mentioned her father's name. Adrian leapt into action, escorting her to the restroom, whispering soothing nonsense. When they returned to the table, Vivian slipped a small bottle into Elena's purse. Another bottle of fake medication. Elena allowed it to happen. She needed witnesses. As they sat back down, Adrian placed a protective hand over hers. You're doing so well, he murmured. Elena swallowed her anger and smiled weakly. Everything was being recorded, every fake gesture of care, every manipulative touch. That night back at home, Elena checked Adrian's phone while he showered. She found the text chain between him and Vivian. Meeting with Dr. Ellis scheduled. Push hard at next appointment. He's fragile. Elena forwarded the messages to her secure account and deleted the originals. Then she opened the fake psychiatric evaluation Vivian had hidden in her purse. Already filled out, detailing fabricated incidents, medications she'd never taken, breakdowns that had never happened. Dated for next week's appointment. Elena's hands shook as she took pictures of every page. They're building a complete case, Naomi said when Elena sent her the evidence. But they're building it on lies. When the day of the appointment came, Elena played her role perfectly. She sat nervously between Adrian and Vivian in the waiting room of Dr. Ellis's office. Dr. Ellis greeted them with professional calm. "Why don't you tell me what brings you here today?" he asked Elena kindly. She wrung her hands together. I'm confused a lot lately. I don't always remember things right." Vivian leaned forward eagerly. "She's had several episodes. Accusing loyal staff of stealing. Missing important meetings." Adrian chimed in. "We're worried about her mental state." Dr. Ellis nodded thoughtfully, making notes. Elena stayed silent, looking small and overwhelmed. She needed Dr. Ellis to believe she was fragile, until she didn't. Halfway through the session, Dr. Ellis set his clipboard down. "Actually," he said calmly, "I've already seen additional materials regarding your case, Miss Walsh." Vivian stiffened. Adrian shot him a sharp look. "What materials?" he asked. Dr. Ellis pulled out a small USB drive. Hours of recorded conversations. Videos. Text messages. Sworn statements from witnesses like Rosa. Adrian's face drained of color. Vivian's perfect smile faltered. Elena sat up straighter in her chair, dropping the frightened act. "I'm very aware of what's been happening," she said clearly. "And so are the police." The door to Dr. Ellis's office opened. Mr. Carter, Elena's trust lawyer, entered, followed by 2 police officers. Vivian gasped audibly. "This is absurd," she shrieked. "She's mentally unstable." Adrian stood quickly, hands raised. "Baby, please, you don't understand." "No," Elena said coldly. "I understand perfectly. You and your mother conspired to have me declared insane so you could steal my inheritance." Vivian turned on Adrian. "Do something," she hissed. But it was too late. The police officers moved forward, cuffing Adrian first as he protested, then Vivian, who fought and screamed all the way to the door. In the quiet aftermath, Dr. Ellis turned to Elena. "You handled that brilliantly," he said, his voice filled with respect. Elena offered a small, tired smile. "They forgot one important thing. My father taught me to record everything." She gathered her things and followed Mr. Carter out of the office. Her heart was still racing, but for the first time in months, it wasn't with fear. It was with relief. Outside, the sun shone brightly and Elena let herself breathe deeply. It was over. At least the worst part was. At the police station, Elena watched through a glass window as Adrian and Vivian sat in separate rooms, each trying to shift blame onto the other. Vivian wailed about trying to help Elena. Adrian claimed ignorance, saying he was only following his mother's advice. "Do you want to press charges?" Detective Harris asked Elena. She nodded without hesitation. "They tried to steal my life. They don't get to walk away from that." Charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted false imprisonment and psychological abuse were filed. "You've won," Naomi said quietly beside her. Elena shook her head. "Not yet. But soon." In court, Adrian and Vivian's crimes were laid bare. Elena sat calmly, dressed in black, her expression composed as recordings were played for the jury. Every lie, every manipulation, every plan to make her look insane was exposed. Vivian broke first, sobbing in open court, begging for mercy. Adrian followed, trying to paint himself as a victim of his mother's schemes. The jury wasn't fooled. They found them both guilty on all counts. When the judge sentenced Adrian to 15 years and Vivian to 12, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Justice had finally been served. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for a statement. Elena stood tall, microphone flashing in her face. "How do you feel about the verdict?" someone shouted. Elena smiled faintly. "I feel free." Later that evening, back at home, Elena walked through the house that had once felt like a cage. Now it felt like hers again. She called a contractor to redecorate. New furniture. New colors. A fresh start. The library, once a den of secrets, would become a bright reading room. The guest room where Vivian had whispered evil plans would be turned into a sunlit study. Pearl, now happily rehired, arrived with groceries and warm hugs. "You did it, Miss Elena," she said, beaming. "You showed them they picked the wrong woman." Elena laughed softly. "They underestimated me." Over coffee, Pearl mentioned something else. "Other women, Miss Elena. Women like you, they need help. Not everyone has lawyers and friends like you did." The idea took root in Elena's mind immediately. By nightfall she was drafting plans for a new foundation, a legal fund to help victims of psychological abuse fight back. The gala came quickly. Dressed in a sleek black gown, Elena stood backstage clutching her speech notes. Naomi squeezed her hand. "You're doing something important," she said. Elena smiled, nerves and excitement warring inside her. When the spotlight hit her, Elena stepped up to the podium. She scanned the crowd, survivors, advocates, supporters. "When someone tries to convince you you're crazy," she said, her voice clear, "what they really fear is that you're strong enough to stand in your truth." The room went silent, hanging on her every word. Behind her, the Walsh Foundation for Psychological Abuse Survivors logo glowed on the giant screen. Elena spoke about her journey, about betrayal, resilience, and survival. She spoke about the importance of believing yourself even when no one else does. As she ended her speech, the room exploded into applause. Pearl wept openly. Naomi clapped until her hands hurt. And Elena stood there soaking it all in. She hadn't just survived. She had built something new, something powerful out of her pain. Later that night, Elena returned home alone, the city lights sparkling outside her windows. She curled up in her new reading chair, Pearl's cookies on the table beside her, her father's old journal in her lap. She opened it to her favorite quote, "True strength isn't about revenge. It's about justice." Elena smiled softly. Her fight was over, but the movement she had started was just beginning. Somewhere out there, another woman was gathering her strength, her courage, her proof. And thanks to Elena, she wouldn't have to fight alone. Moral lesson: when someone tries to gaslight you into questioning your reality, trust your instincts and protect your truth. Real strength lies not in seeking revenge but in standing up for justice, for yourself and for others.